My name is Hazel. I'm 30 years old, living alone in Austin, Texas. This year, I decided to throw myself a birthday party. Not because I love parties, but because I wanted to trust one more time that my family, despite growing distant over the years, might still remember the day I was born. I rented a small corner in a cozy bar down south of the city. Nothing extravagant, just a few strings of warm lights and some childhood photos I taped to the wall, as if to remind them I still existed, still belonged to that family. I ordered a medium-sized red velvet cake, prepared a few thank you cards, and sent invitations to everyone. My mom, my stepdad, and my two half-siblings. Every one of them got it. That evening, I arrived early and picked a seat near the bar, where the light was soft enough to feel warm but not draw attention. 7 p.m. I checked my phone. Not a single message, no missed calls. 8 p.m. The cake sat untouched, the cards were still sealed. I took a small sip of water, trying not to glance around too much, hoping to avoid the pitying stares of strangers. The bartender poured me a free plum wine. "Maybe they're just running late," he said gently. I nodded and forced a smile. That smile broke the moment the clock struck 9. No one came, not a soul. I cut a slice of cake, pretended to post something on social media like everything was fine, but nothing was. I ate each bite in silence, not because it tasted good, but because I didn't want the cake to look forgotten. My eyes avoided the lights and the truth. At 10 p.m., I packed my things, left a tip, and walked out of what had just become the witness to my solitude. I came home to silence. The only sounds were my heels against the floor and my heartbeat, steady and heavy. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hollow inside. It wasn't their absence that hurt. It was that I still held on to hope. A week later, while I was working, my phone buzzed. A group message from Mom. "Hey family, Frank's 55th birthday is coming up. We're throwing it at Pacific Shores Resort. It'll be $1,200 per person. Please send it to me by Friday. Love you all." I read it 3 times. No apology, no mention of my birthday, just a shameless invoice dressed up as affection. My sister replied right away. "Just sent it, Mom. So excited." Then my brother, "All paid, can't wait." I sat frozen. I wasn't angry, just coldly relieved. There was nothing left to preserve. No more pretending to be the good daughter. I opened my payment app and sent exactly $1. Note, happy birthday. I locked my front door, changed all passwords to our joint accounts, and sat down, exhaling like it was the first time in years I'd really breathed. After sending the sarcastic $, I went through my contacts and blocked every number in the family thread. Mom, Frank, Madison, Tyler. With each tap on block contact, it felt like I was unhooking a chain that had wrapped around me for years. I gave no explanation. They didn't deserve one. That night, I called a locksmith to replace every lock in the apartment. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew my mother. Silence to her was always a challenge. And she never walked away from a challenge. 2 days later, while working at my favorite coffee shop, my phone flashed a strange bank notification. Suspicious login attempt from new device. My chest tightened like an invisible rope had just tightened. I opened the banking app, hands trembling. There were traces of access to the old joint account. The one I had used to cover Tyler's tuition, Madison's wedding, and even the bathroom renovation Mom insisted on to ease Frank's back pain. I called the bank immediately. "Freeze the account now. Move all remaining funds into my personal one. Change all verification methods." My voice was hard, no hesitation. That evening, I started receiving calls from unknown numbers. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. "What the hell are you doing? Why change the locks? Why block me? And you froze the account. Call me back." I turned off my phone. I thought things might settle down, but I had underestimated my mother's ability to rewrite the narrative. She always knew how to turn herself into the victim when things slipped out of her control. That Friday night, while watching a movie, the doorbell rang, fast and loud. I glanced at the security cam. 2 uniformed police officers stood outside, one tall, stern-faced, the other younger, holding a notepad. I cracked the door. "Can I help you?" The taller officer asked. "Are you Hazel Miller?" I nodded. "We received a report that you're missing. Your family's concerned you may be mentally unstable and unreachable, possibly at risk of self-harm." I blinked. Missing? I stared into their eyes, a cold wave of disbelief creeping down my spine. "I'm fine. I just cut off contact with some people for personal reasons. I've been working, living normally. I'm not a danger to myself." The younger officer studied me. "Do you have someone who can verify that you're safe?" I handed him my phone, opened my remote work app, and pointed to the live meeting feed. "I've been on calls all day. Over 10 people in my company can confirm." The other officer jotted something down. "Your family said they haven't heard from you and are worried." I gave a dry smile. "I blocked them after they tried to break into my bank account, ignored my birthday, and then sent me a bill for my stepdad's party." They went quiet. One finally said, "We don't intervene in family matters, but if you feel harassed, you might want to consider a restraining order." I nodded. "If they contact me again, I will." They left without further questions. When the door shut, I stood there for a long while, chest hollow. I never imagined a day my own family would file a missing persons report, not out of concern, but because they couldn't handle losing control over me. I sat down on the bed, phone still in hand. New messages kept rolling in from strange numbers. "Hazel, open the door, I'm here." "You can't treat your family like this. Frank's losing his mind. He thinks you've gone crazy." I didn't answer. I wasn't that quiet girl standing behind a door anymore. I'd locked it, and this time, the key was mine alone. It was Saturday noon when the doorbell rang as I was making coffee. It wasn't the polite knock or soft call like the officers a few days earlier. It was loud, angry pounding. I walked slowly to the door and glanced quickly at the security screen. Mom, Frank, my stepdad, and behind them stood Madison, my younger sister. All 3 wore tension on their faces. Mom squinted, her lips pressed into a tight, furious line. Frank stood with arms crossed, shoulders rigid. Madison? She was tapping on her phone constantly, probably recording every moment to retell it later in her own twisted way. I didn't open the door right away. I turned on the speaker. "What are you doing here, Mom?" "Open the door right now," she snapped. "We need to talk." "That's enough, Hazel." "Talk about what, Mom? About how you tried to access my bank account? Or how I was left out of Frank's birthday but still got asked to pay for it?" Frank cut in, voice thick with reproach. "You're acting like a child. We're all worried about you and this is how you respond?" I let out a dry laugh. "Worried? You called the police and reported me missing. That's your version of concern?" Madison banged hard on the door. "Who do you think you are? Ignoring our calls, our texts? Now you're playing the victim?" I took a deep breath and opened the door. I didn't let them in. I stood firm in the doorway, blocking entry. "What do you want?" I asked, with no attempt to hide the cold edge in my voice. My mother looked me in the eyes, voice full of drama. "We're family, and you're treating me like a stranger. I don't even recognize you anymore." "Maybe you never did," I replied. "Do you know what hurts me the most? Not being forgotten on my birthday, but realizing I only matter when..." I pull out my wallet. Frank stepped forward, face flushed. "We raised you, fed you, educated you, and now you turn your back on us, block everyone, and tear the family apart?" I stared at him, a strange sense of distance washing over me. Raised me? Educated me. I started working when I was 16. I earned my own scholarships. I paid off my student loans. I bought my first car with wages from my part-time jobs. What did you give me besides the bare minimum? Mom exploded. And what about the nights I stayed up worrying about you? The loans I took out to buy Christmas gifts for this family, and now you throw it all away over a party? My voice sharpened, every word cutting clean. Not over a party, over a decade of endurance. Every time I had money, you just happened to need to borrow. I paid nearly $30,000 for Madison's wedding and never got so much as a thank you. Every time I said, I'm tired, you told me, we're all tired. Don't be dramatic. Madison sneered. You always play the martyr. You have money but act stingy. You're not the only one who's struggled. You're right, I nodded, eyes locked on hers. I'm not the only one who's struggled. But I am the only one who got exploited and still called it love. Frank tried to keep calm. We just want things to go back to how they were. A family can't fall apart over a misunderstanding. I shook my head, hand still gripping the door. It's not a misunderstanding. It's the truth. It's years of giving from one side and taking from the other. And I'm done being your walking aid. My mother's eyes burned with pure rage. Fine. You want out? I'll give you out. But don't come crawling back when you have no one. I spoke slowly, each word deliberate. If I have to choose between being alone or being used, I choose alone. She opened her mouth, but Frank pulled her back. Madison gave me a sharp glare before turning away. I shut the door. Calm, firm, final. Like closing the last page of a chapter I should have ended long ago. Outside, I heard their footsteps fade, then the slam of a car door. Silence followed, but it no longer felt heavy. I stood alone in my apartment, hand over my chest. It didn't hurt. It just felt like breathing, clear and weightless. 2 days after the confrontation at my front door, I received a notification from the bank. A request had been filed to refinance the house in the Lake Travis area. The house under both my mother's name and mine. Yes, 6 years ago, when my mother called me late at night sobbing, saying they were about to be evicted for not qualifying for another loan, I agreed to co-sign the mortgage. Back then, I thought simply, I can help. I'm in a better financial position. But I never imagined that one day, they'd try to refinance again without even asking me. I sat in front of the screen, feeling like I'd just been punched in the chest. It wasn't just disrespect anymore. This was a scheme. I called my attorney right away, Ms. Gretchen Lewis, a sharp woman in her 50s who had helped me handle some financial disputes back when I worked in real estate. Gretchen, they're trying to refinance the house without my consent. I want it blocked immediately, she replied curtly. Send me the old mortgage agreement, the title deed, and any related emails. I'll freeze all transactional rights tied to your name. But I wasn't done. I opened my laptop and began drafting another email. Subject: request for personal financial audit, family support expenses from the past 6 years. I wrote to my personal accountant and attached a list of what I remembered most clearly. Down payment on house for Mom and Frank, $62,000. Pickup truck loan for Frank, $18,500. Wedding expenses for Madison, $27,000. Tyler's college tuition over 4 years, $39,800. Emergency support during Mom's illness in 2021, $55,200. Miscellaneous borrowed and forgotten amounts over the years, $12,000. Total, $214,500. I asked them to create a detailed spreadsheet, itemized by category and by year, with proof of each transaction attached. I didn't want to argue anymore. I wanted numbers. I wanted evidence. I wanted receipts. 3 days later, the audit was complete. I stared at the spreadsheet, hands slightly trembling. Not from regret, but from the realization that I'd spent years living under the illusion that I was loved. Turns out, that love had a price tag and a column total. I sent the file to the temporarily reopened family group chat. The attached message had just 5 words. I want it all back. Within the hour, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed call from Mom. A message from Madison. Are you insane? Who counts every penny with their own family? Then Tyler. I'm working side jobs to survive and you want what? For me to sell blood? And of course, Frank had his say. His message was cold. You're tearing this family apart. Your mother hasn't slept in days. I didn't respond. I emailed Gretchen. I want to withdraw my ownership share of the house, if they can't buy me out. Push for a forced sale. She called me back within 10 minutes. You're sure? This will force them to either gather the money to buy your share or sell the entire property and split the proceeds. They might turn on you. I stared at the audit. I'm reclaiming fairness. What they do with their face? That's on them. That same day, Gretchen's law office sent an official notice to my mother and Frank. Hazel Miller is withdrawing her capital from the jointly owned property at 1175 Shoreline Drive. If no response is received within 14 days, the process for a forced sale will proceed. Their reaction came swiftly. First, a text from Madison. You really want to see Mom back in that rundown old apartment? You're not just cold. You're selfish. I read it, said nothing, then deleted it. They called me selfish. Me, the daughter who used to send money every month, even when no one bothered to ask how I was. That night, I received the one message that actually made me pause. Hazel, if you go through with this, we'll lose everything. The house will be sold. I have no idea where I'll go. Are you really this heartless? Mom. I set the phone down without replying. I didn't feel heartless. I felt clear-headed. And for the first time in years, I knew with certainty. If I didn't see this through, I'd slip right back into the old role. Silent, providing, and getting hurt. Since Gretchen sent the legal notice, I didn't hear a word from my family for an entire week. That silence? It didn't feel like surrender. It felt like the calm before a storm. Quiet, calculated, and full of intent. And then it arrived. Monday afternoon, I got an email from my lawyer. Your family has agreed to sell the house. It's being listed as a fast sale property, but it seems they're finding every excuse to delay your share of the payment. I replied with just 2 words. Stay close. 3 days later, I got a call from a distant relative. Aunt Amelia. My mother's older sister who lives in Florida. Her voice was soft, but there was tension beneath every syllable. Hazel, your mom called me crying, saying you're throwing the whole family out onto the streets. I don't know exactly what's going on, but they said you're demanding hundreds of thousands of dollars. Is that true? I didn't explain. Not because I didn't respect her, but because I had no energy left to justify myself. Everyone believes the version of the story they want to hear, I simply said, as calmly as a breeze brushing my chest. I'm only asking for what I gave. They can sell the house, the cars, anything they bought with my money. That's fairness, not revenge. She went quiet, then hung up. 2 weeks later, the house was officially listed. A 2-story, 3-bedroom home with a wooden deck out back, once the site of backyard barbecues and happy family photos, was now listed below market price just to cover debt. I felt nothing looking at the photos. No sadness, no satisfaction. They started selling cars. Frank's newer model Ford Explorer sold for $15,000. My mother's sedan? Posted on Facebook Marketplace as if they were downsizing, not collapsing. Then came the jewelry. The white gold necklace Mom wore for years, once said to be a wedding memento. The sapphire earrings I gave her when I got my first promotion. I recognized them in a photo the broker sent to Gretchen. Proof that they were making payment efforts. Then came the first transfer, $10,000. A week later, another $5,000. I said nothing. I didn't follow up. But Gretchen didn't wait. She sent a formal collection letter, warning that if the remaining balance wasn't paid, we would proceed with a forced sale. No more negotiations. The next morning, I received the remaining $7,200. Total, $22,200. Exactly what I had asked for. Not a penny more. When that number appeared on my banking screen, I stared at it like I was looking straight at my reflection. 10 years of giving, 10 years of being drained, wrapped into a single, cold line of text. Transfer received. That very same day, I got an update. They had vacated the house. According to Gretchen, my mother couldn't qualify for a rental due to her low credit score and lack of collateral. Frank had lost his job 3 months earlier but had kept it from everyone. Madison and Tyler both moved in with their boyfriends. Neither of them offered to take in Mom or Frank. I don't know exactly where they are now. There were whispers they might be staying in the old RV Frank once planned to convert into a retirement travel van. Maybe now it's their main home. That evening, a message came in from Madison. "You happy now? Mom's curled up in a freezing van with no heater. You call that justice?" I stared at that text for a long time. Not because I felt guilty, but because it sounded so familiar. Always the same voice. A family that only remembered me when they needed saving. I didn't respond. I don't live in that cycle of guilt anymore. I took a walk around the lake near my home. No phone, no anger. Just me, the crisp December air in Austin, and the clearest feeling I've ever had. Freedom. 4 months later, I slowly learned how to live with silence. No messages, no calls, no voices blaming me in the middle of the night. Life had grown quiet. So quiet it felt almost foreign. But I wasn't afraid of that. Peace was never something I had been taught to accept. It arrived, slowly, but firmly. One Friday evening, a coworker invited me to go bowling after work. I normally avoided loud places, but that day I said yes. Maybe because I needed to see for myself. After everything, had I truly stepped out from under that shadow? We picked a lane near the end. Laughter echoed, neon lights flashed across the polished wood floor. I threw a few frames decently. The sound of pins crashing felt like a quiet release. Then it was my coworker's turn. I glanced to the right and froze. 2 lanes over, a man was struggling to lift a heavy dark green ball. His shoulders looked thinner than I remembered, his hair grayer. He missed. The ball rolled into the gutter. As he bent down for another, his eyes swept toward me. That look stopped. The shock on his face was unmistakable. My stepdad. I stood up, instinctively turning to leave. But I stopped, and this time, I didn't look away. He walked slowly toward me, his bowling shoes making a soft squeak across the floor. "Hazel," he said gently, as if even one wrong breath might shatter the moment. I stood still. No nod. No smile. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said, glancing at the empty lane beside me. "Mind if I play around?" I didn't reply. I just motioned to the attendant to reset the lane. He sat beside me. Silence stretched between us like a tightrope over 2 crumbling towers. His first throw fell straight into the gutter, again. He gave a quiet laugh and shook his head. "Guess I've lost the last habit that made me feel like I was better than someone." I said nothing, just watched the next ball roll wide again. "Hazel," he said as he sat back down, "I didn't come here to ask for money. If it were the old me, I probably would've. But not this time." I turned to look at him. The green light brushed across his face, revealing lines he could no longer hide. I used to think I was strong. A man. The head of the house. But when you started earning, growing, becoming more independent, I felt small. His voice dropped a beat. I was jealous. And instead of trying harder, I hid behind the role of stepfather. Used the label family to hold on to what was never mine. I rested my arms on my knees, eyes steady. "You didn't just take money. You took trust. And you dragged my mom, my siblings, into a cycle of dependence no one was willing to admit." He nodded. "I know. No apology could ever fix it, but I still want you to know I truly regret it. I'm sorry I never told you. That I was proud of you. At last, I heard the words I had longed to hear for nearly 20 years. You know I'm not coming back, I said, voice low but clear. I'm not trying to reconnect. I don't want to fix anything. I just want to live the rest of my life without being expected to give, just to exist in a relationship. He was quiet, then reached out his hand. It trembled slightly, like he wasn't sure what he'd get in return. I stared at it for a moment, then slowly extended mine. His hand was cold, mine wasn't warm. But that handshake finally felt equal. Two people, not a provider and someone in need. I stood up, straightened my jacket. I'm heading out. Enjoy your game. He nodded. Didn't ask me to stay. Outside, the night air brushed against my hair, carrying traces of the sounds still echoing from inside. I opened my car door, sat behind the wheel, and took a long breath. I drove away from the bowling alley, streetlights sliding across the windshield like streaks of memory being wiped clean. Every red light was a breath out, slow and deep, as if each vertebra that had been tight for years was finally starting to release. There was no one in the car asking if I was okay. No missed calls waiting to guilt me. No messages saying, I don't know who else to ask but you, or I'm desperate, can you help? Just me, in silence that I didn't feel like loneliness. When I got home, I opened the window. The night breeze drifted in, scented with magnolia from the hedges below. The city, deep into the night, no longer buzzed with horns or chaos, only the quiet rhythms of people actually living, not just surviving. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, hot tea in hand. In that moment, I didn't think of the past. I didn't count the years it took to break free from the cycle labeled obligation. I just felt my body, no longer being pulled by anyone else's will but my own. I used to think revenge would bring satisfaction, but it didn't. What I'd done wasn't about winning. It was about escape. Escape from the role of the good daughter. Escape from the trap of unconditional love that only went one way. Escape from emotional control, tears, anger, guilt sweet enough to numb every boundary. I opened my laptop and checked my account summary, not to see the balance, but to stare at the number that had never made me feel safer than now. I booked a trip, not to run, but to begin again somewhere I had no roles to play. A place where I wasn't someone's sister, someone's daughter, or the name on a loan. I was just Hazel. The next morning, I woke early. No alarm, no pressure. I walked through the park near my house. Kids were kicking a soccer ball, an older man was letting his dogs run free, and a young woman was reading on a bench. No one knew who I was. No one needed anything from me. And that feeling? It wasn't empty. It was freedom. I don't know what the future will look like. Maybe my family will try to reach out again. Maybe someday I'll receive a handwritten letter from my mother full of tears and longing. But what I do know for sure is this. I'm no longer under their control. I don't need anyone to approve of my choices. I made them. And I live with them. Steadfast, quiet, and without regret. That night, as I walked past a little second-hand shop, I saw a small wooden sign hanging on the wall. It read, "Freedom isn't walking away from someone, it's returning to yourself." I smiled. No one had to see it. Hazel's story is a powerful reminder that family bonds don't mean unconditional sacrifice. In a world where family pressure is often disguised as duty, setting boundaries is an act of courage. Hazel wasn't chasing victory, she was choosing freedom from a sweet but toxic kind of control. Like so many in real life, sometimes to truly love yourself, you have to stop running and walk away, not out of anger, but because peace, in the end, is the greatest gift. What do you think of Hazel's choice? Was she too cold or simply protecting herself? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to follow the channel for more deep, emotional family stories.